What also have I not done? What resources have I not exhausted in my determination to reach a state where the functioning of my psyche in my usual waking state would flow in accordance with the previous instructions of my active consciousness, but all in vain. In my past life, being forever merciless to my natural weaknesses, and almost all the time jealously keeping watch over myself, I could attain almost anything within the limits of man's possibilities, and in some fields attained even to such a degree of power as not one man, perhaps not even in any past epoch, had ever attained. For instance, the development of the power of my thoughts had been brought to such a level that by only a few hours of self-preparation I could, from a distance of 10 miles, kill a yak, or in 24 hours could accumulate life forces of such compactness that I could in 5 minutes put to sleep an elephant. At the same time, in spite of all my desires and endeavours, I could not succeed in remembering myself in the process of my general common life with others, so as to be able to manifest myself, not according to my nature, but according to the previous instructions of my collected consciousness. I could not attain the state of remembering myself, even sufficiently to hinder the associations flowing in me automatically from certain undesirable hereditary factors of my nature. As soon as the accumulation of energy which enabled me to be in an active state was exhausted, at once associations of both thoughts and feelings began to flow in the directions of objects diametrically opposite to the ideals of my consciousness. When I found myself in a state of complete dissatisfaction with food and sex, the leading factor of these associations of mine appeared to be primarily vindictiveness, and in a state of full satisfaction, they proceeded on a theme of the forthcoming pleasure of a meal and sex, or of the gratification of self-love, vanity, pride, jealousy, and other passions. I thought deeply myself and tried to find out from others about the reasons for such a terrible situation within my inner world, but could not clarify anything at all. From one side, it is clear that it is necessary to remember myself during the process of ordinary life also, and from the other side that there is a necessity for the presence of attentiveness which is able to merge in case of contact with others. Though in my past life I had tried everything, even had worn reminding factors of all kinds in my person, nothing helped. Perhaps these did help a little while I carried them on me, but if so, it was only at the beginning. As soon as I stopped carrying them or got used to them in a moment, it was as if before. There is no way out whatsoever. However, there is one exit only, to have outside myself, so to say, a never sleeping, regulating factor. Namely, a factor which would remind me always in my every common state to remember myself. But what is this? Can it be really so? A new thought? Why, hitherto could there not have come to my head such a simple thought? Did I have to suffer and despair so much in order only now to think of such a possibility? Why could I not, in this instance, also look to a universal analogy? And here also is God, again God, only he is everywhere, and with him everything is connected. I am a man, and as such I am, in contrast to all other outer forms of animal life, created by him in his image, for he is God, and therefore I also have within myself all the possibilities and impossibilities that he has. The difference between him and myself must lie only in scale, for he is God of all the presences in the universe. It follows that I also have to be God of some kind of presence on my scale. He is God and I am God. Whatever possibilities he has in relation to the presences of the universe, such possibilities and impossibilities I should also have in relation to the world subordinate to me. He is God of all the world and also of my outer world. I am God also, although only of my inner world. He is God and I am God. For all and in everything we have the same possibilities and impossibilities. Whatever is possible or impossible in the sphere of his great world should be possible or impossible in the sphere of my small world. This is as clear as that after the night must inevitably come the day. But how could I have failed to notice such a startling analogy? I had thought so much about world creation and world maintenance, and in general about God and his deeds, and also had discoursed with many others about all these matters, but never once had there come to my mind this simple thought. And yet it could not be otherwise. Everything, without exception, all sound logic as well as all historical data, reveal and affirm that God represents absolute goodness. He is all-loving and all-forgiving. He is the just pacifier of all that exists. At the same time, why should he, being as he is, send away from himself one of his nearest, by him animated, beloved sons, only for the way of pride, proper to any young and still incompletely formed individual, and bestow upon him a force equal but opposite to his own? I refer to the devil. This idea illuminated the condition of my inner world like the sun, and rendered it obvious that in the great world for the possibility of harmonious construction there was inevitably required some kind of continuous perpetuation of the reminding factor. For this reason our Maker himself, in the name of all that he had created, was compelled to place one of his beloved sons in such an, in the objective sense, invidious situation. Therefore I also have now for my small inner world to create out of myself, from some factor beloved by me, an alike unending source. There arises now a question like this: what is there contained in my general presence, which, if I should remove it from myself, would always, in my various general states, be reminding me of itself? Thinking and thinking, I came to the conclusion that if I should intentionally stop utilising the exceptional power in my possession, which had been developed by me consciously in my common life with people, then there must be forced out of me such a reminding source. Namely, the power based upon strength in the field of Hambledosian, or as it would be called by others, the power of telepathy and hypnotism. Thanks mainly to this, my inherency developed in me by myself, I, in the process of general life, especially for the last 2 years, had been spoiled and depraved to the core, so that most likely this would remain for all my life. And so, if consciously I would deprive myself of this grace of my inherency, then undoubtedly always and in everything its absence would be felt. I take an oath to remember never to make use of this inherency of mine, and thereby to deprive myself from satisfying most of my vices. In the process of living together with others, this beloved inherency will always be a reminder for me. Never so long as I live shall I forget what state of mind resulted then, when, on the last day of my presence in that place, there happened the above given self-reasoning, which terminated in the conclusion which I have given above. As soon as I realised the sense of this idea, I was as if reincarnated. I got up and began to run around the spring, without knowing what I was doing, like a young calf. It all ended thus, that I decided to take an oath before my own essence, in a state of mind known to me, never again to make use of this property of mine. I must also mention that, when I took the oath not to apply in life this inherency of mine, I made a reservation that my oath should not concern the application of it for scientific purposes.